Could the secrets hidden in plain sight be the key to unlocking a truth so devastating it leaves us questioning everything? In the stillness of a rain-soaked night, a single flickering streetlight casts ominous shadows on a deserted alley, hinting at stories that have long been buried. A faded family photo, half obscured by time and sorrow, serves as a silent witness to the innocence lost, a poignant reminder of lives altered forever by unseen forces. The tension builds as whispers of ignored warnings echo in the darkness, drawing us into a maze of mystery and heartache. Will you dare to peer into the abyss and discover what lies beyond the veil of silence? Welcome to a journey into the heart of Crimebite, a realm where real-life horrors meet the cold reality of systemic failure. In this documentary, we peel back the layers of one of the most heart-rending cases, revealing a tapestry of deceit, neglect, and unimaginable cruelty that has left an indelible mark on an entire community. As we guide you through this labyrinth of evidence and testimony, prepare to confront disturbing truths that challenge your understanding of justice and protection. We want to extend our heartfelt appreciation to all our dedicated subscribers whose support makes this exploration possible. Your commitment fuels our mission to shed light on dark corners and spark meaningful change. If you find these investigations compelling, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notifications button so you never miss an update on our latest true crime revelations. Will you join us in this relentless pursuit of truth and help us demand justice for those whose voices have been silenced? In the heart of suburban Texas, a seemingly quiet community hid an undercurrent of pain and neglect that would soon erupt into tragedy. Life moved at a steady pace in Grand Prairie, a place where children laughed in backyards and neighbors exchanged friendly greetings. Yet behind closed doors, warnings had been murmuring for years, echoing a caution that few dared to heed. For the uninitiated, these were simply the minor mishaps of everyday life. For those who knew better, they were the early, desperate cries for help that went unnoticed by a system designed to protect the vulnerable. The early days of 2016 began with a deceptive calm. A gentle winter night hid the impending storm that would upend the lives of those involved. Leiliana Wright, a vibrant 4-year-old with a smile that lit up even the darkest corners, was at the center of this tragic tale. Born into a life marred by instability, she had known moments of warmth in the embrace of her loving grandparents. Moments that, however fleeting, offered a stark contrast to the coming darkness. Meanwhile, professionals entrusted with her safety, like Child Protective Services, had received multiple warnings, but were overwhelmed by bureaucracy and conflicting reports. In this part of the story, we see how the veneer of normalcy can conceal deep-rooted issues. Neighbors whispered about strange occurrences at the modest home, and school teachers noted subtle changes in a little girl who once radiated joy. Despite these red flags, the system's inefficiencies allowed the tragedy to edge ever closer, like storm clouds gathering silently on the horizon. What if the small signals we dismiss today could prevent a catastrophe tomorrow? Leiliana's life began amid promise and hope, yet from the very start, the threads of her story were woven with instability. Born in Galveston in 2012, her existence was a collage of fleeting moments of happiness and persistent anxiety. In her early years, her paternal grandparents provided a haven, a home filled with unconditional love, bright laughter, and tender moments of care. The gentle rhythm of her childhood was punctuated by playful afternoons and innocent song, offering her a taste of the childhood every child deserves. But the picture was far from complete. Leiliana's mother, Jerry, had a troubled past, and her eventual return to custody in December 2013 signified the beginning of an era defined by tension and uncertainty. The transition was jarring for a child so young. The shift from the safety of her grandparents' care to an environment fraught with risk left scars invisible to the naked eye. Subtle changes emerged. The once effervescent laughter gave way to silence. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed under the weight of unspoken fears. Teachers, neighbors, and even passing strangers started to notice small but significant marks. A bruise here, a hesitant glance there. These early signs were whispers of abuse, mere hints that something was gravely amiss. Unfortunately, each warning was met with bureaucratic inertia. The system was burdened with cases, and Leiliana's cries for help were drowned out by a flood of paperwork and inaction. In the quiet moments of her life, the seeds of neglect took root, setting the stage for the horror to come. Could these quiet signals have been the keys to averting an impending disaster? As Jerry resumed custody of Leiliana, the once bright trajectory of the child's life began to twist into a path of heartache. The loving care provided by her grandparents was abruptly interrupted by the realities of a tumultuous home environment. Leiliana was caught between two worlds, one of gentle nurture and another of neglect and abuse. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. During family visits, the little girl's once effervescent energy dimmed noticeably. Her laughter faded into cautious silence. Family members and close acquaintances became increasingly alarmed. They witnessed not only physical signs, bruises and unexplained marks, but also emotional shifts. Teachers reported a reserved demeanor, and neighbors whispered about unsettling scenes glimpsed through curtained windows. The disintegration of her safe haven was compounded by the disjointed responses of the state's protective services. Despite numerous reports and pleas from those closest to Leiliana, the system's response was slow, leaving the child stranded in a home where every day brought fresh pain. At its core, this part of the story is about the devastating impact of fractured family ties and systemic neglect. When trust is broken and the ones meant to offer protection falter, the consequences can be immeasurable. The lack of timely intervention was not merely a failure of communication. It was a profound failure of a system designed to act as a safety net for society's most vulnerable. Is it possible that our institutions are so burdened by their own limitations that they fail those who need them most? Warnings can be subtle, often buried within layers of routine observations and seemingly minor incidents. Yet in Leiliana's life, they were glaring in their absence of intervention. For months, concerned family members, educators, and neighbors tried to raise the alarm. Reports detailing visible injuries, emotional distress, and erratic behavior were submitted to Child Protective Services, each one a plea for intervention that fell on deaf ears. In February 2016, one desperate call came directly from Leiliana's grandmother, a woman who had watched her beloved granddaughter's spirit fade away. She provided not only verbal testimony but also photographic evidence that vividly captured the signs of abuse. These images, raw and heartbreaking, bore witness to a cycle of violence that had been building up over time. Yet when CPS arrived, the signs were dismissed with explanations that downplayed the severity of the situation. They claimed it was an accident, a fall against a wall, an explanation that did nothing to address the underlying terror that had become a regular part of Leiliana's existence. This part of the narrative exposes a system fraught with oversights and a lack of proactive engagement. Every report was a missed opportunity, a chance to pull a young life back from the brink of irreversible harm. The irony is cruel. A system designed to protect children had become a silent accomplice to their suffering. The gap between what was observed and what was acted upon grew wider with each passing day, until it reached a point of no return. When the warning bells ring out, should we not be compelled to act before silence becomes the loudest cry for help? As midnight approached on March 13, 2016, the tension that had been building for years reached a devastating climax. The quiet of the night was abruptly shattered by a frantic 911 call from a home in Grand Prairie, Texas. The caller's voice was filled with panic, a stark contrast to the clinical calm of the dispatch operator on the other end. Within minutes, paramedics rushed to the scene, their sirens slicing through the darkness as they navigated the quiet streets. Arriving at a modest single-story home, the first responders were met with an eerie stillness. The porch light flickered weakly, casting long shadows over the worn exterior of the house. Inside, a scene of unfathomable horror unfolded. In a room that should have been filled with the innocent laughter of a child, there lay a lifeless Leiliana Wright, her small body marked by severe injuries. It was a tableau of unspeakable violence, a brutal culmination of years of neglect and abuse that no one had dared to fully comprehend. For the paramedics, every second counted, yet deep down, they recognized that no intervention could reverse the devastating reality. The physical evidence was undeniable. Fresh bruises mingled with older wounds, broken ribs, and clear signs of restraint. The chaotic narratives provided by the adults in the house, the mother's hurried claims of an accidental fall, began to crumble under the weight of forensic precision. The truth was emerging from the shadows, and it was far more horrifying than anyone had imagined. Could the tragedy of that fateful night have been averted if only someone had listened to the whispers of warning? In the aftermath of the frantic rescue, forensic teams descended upon the scene with a meticulous precision that would soon lay bare the grim truth. Every bruise, every mark, every subtle sign on Leiliana's fragile body became a piece of a horrifying puzzle. As medical examiners and crime scene investigators worked through the night, they uncovered evidence that transformed an apparent accident into a calculated act of cruelty. The detailed analysis revealed that the injuries were not the result of a single, isolated incident, but were inflicted over time. The physical trauma, blunt force impacts, broken ribs, and internal bleeding, matched precisely with the tools found at the scene, a belt and a bamboo stick. These were not random objects, but instruments of torture that bore the marks of repeated use. Additionally, forensic experts found a small dent in the wall, evidence of a force so powerful that it matched the impact of Leiliana's final, devastating blow. The forensic revelations were a turning point in the investigation. They shattered any pretense of an accidental fall and illuminated the brutal reality. Leiliana had been systematically abused, and the injuries painted a clear picture of deliberate, sustained violence. The meticulous work of forensic teams served not only as a means to identify the perpetrators, but also as an unyielding testament to the tragedy that had unfolded, one that no amount of bureaucratic explanation could ever justify. If every detail could speak the truth, why was it that the voices pleading for help had been so easily ignored? As the investigation deepened, the carefully constructed deceptions of those involved began to unravel under the relentless pressure of interrogation. In the sterile confines of the police station, two very different characters emerged, one trembling with guilt and fear, the other coldly detached. Jerry, Leiliana's mother, and Charles, her boyfriend, were subjected to hours of intense questioning. Their initial narratives, featuring rehearsed explanations about an accidental fall, could no longer withstand the onslaught of incontrovertible forensic evidence. Jerry's facade of confusion and despair gradually crumbled as the detectives laid out the evidence before her. The stark images of Leiliana's battered body, the indelible marks on her wrists, and the damning text messages that hinted at a premeditated act of violence left her with no choice but to admit the unthinkable. Under the harsh glare of truth, she confessed that, in an intoxicated state, she and Charles had deliberately tied up and beaten their daughter. Her voice trembled as she recounted the harrowing details, a narrative that not only implicated herself, but also laid bare the cold, calculated cruelty of Charles. Charles, however, remained an enigma throughout the interrogation. His silence was as chilling as it was revealing, a stark refusal to engage with a reality so grim. Even as the evidence piled up, his demeanor did not change, his eyes remaining vacant and detached. The contrast between Jerry's crumbling admission and Charles' ice-cold denial painted a disturbing picture of a man unburdened by remorse. This dissonance between the two suspects underscored a deeper horror, the possibility that such calculated cruelty could coexist with the banal facades of everyday life. In the face of overwhelming evidence, can the silence of the guilty ever be mistaken for innocence? The trial that followed was more than just a legal proceeding. It was a searing public reckoning with a system that had failed a child. The courtroom became a stage where raw emotion met cold, hard evidence. Prosecutors left no stone unturned, presenting the jury with a dossier that was as damning as it was heartbreaking. Crime scene photographs, autopsy reports, and digital text messages combined to create an incontrovertible narrative of abuse, neglect, and calculated cruelty. As the trial unfolded, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted from solemnity to palpable tension. The prosecution's presentation was methodical, each piece of evidence interlocking with the next to construct a picture of relentless violence. For every photograph of Leiliana's injuries, there was a corresponding testimony that described the hidden horrors of her home. Witnesses recounted the red flags that had been ignored, the desperate pleas for help that were never answered. Even as the defense attempted to sow doubt, the weight of the evidence was too overwhelming to dismiss. The contrasting reactions of the accused during the proceedings were striking. Jerry's tearful remorse and the visible anguish of a mother who had been complicit in her child's suffering stood in stark contrast to Charles's unnerving stoicism. His silence echoed through the courtroom, a chilling counterpoint to the passionate condemnations of the prosecution. The trial was not only about assigning legal guilt, it was about holding a system accountable for its failures, exposing the layers of neglect that had allowed a small life to be so brutally extinguished. When justice is served in a public forum, can it ever truly heal the deep wounds of a shattered community? The reverberations of Leiliana Wright's case extended far beyond the courtroom walls. In the wake of the trial, the community was forced to confront not only the horrific details of the abuse, but also the systemic failures that had allowed it to happen. Public outrage surged as families, activists, and child welfare advocates demanded answers. The case quickly evolved into a broader indictment of Child Protective Services, exposing an institutional blindness that had cost an innocent child her life. In the months following the trial, the discussion shifted from individual accountability to systemic reform. Internal reviews were initiated, policies were re-examined, and caseworkers involved in Leiliana's case faced severe consequences. Some were fired or resigned in the wake of public pressure. Yet for many, these steps felt painfully insufficient. The outrage was not just about one case. It was about a pattern of neglect that had repeatedly failed the most vulnerable members of society. At its core, this fallout forced the community to ask difficult questions about responsibility, trust, and the very nature of protection. How could a system designed to safeguard children allow such red flags to be overlooked? Families and advocates began to mobilize, calling for more robust oversight, better training for caseworkers, and a restructuring of the entire child welfare framework. The collective grief and anger were channeled into a demand for change, one that resonated far beyond the borders of Grand Prairie. Can a broken system ever be mended when the echoes of its failures continue to haunt those it was meant to protect? The tragic story of Leiliana Wright is not merely a chronicle of a single case of abuse. It is a rallying cry for systemic change. As the final verdict was read in the courtroom, a broader question loomed over the community. How many more lives must be shattered before real reform is enacted? In the painful aftermath, activists, legal experts, and everyday citizens have united in a common purpose: to ensure that no child is left voiceless, no matter how many warnings are ignored. In the final moments of this harrowing journey, we are left with a profound responsibility, a call to action that resonates far beyond this single tragedy. As the screen fades to black and soft, reflective music fills the air, we see the silhouettes of community members standing together in solidarity. This isn't merely a story of loss. It's an urgent invitation to reclaim our duty to protect the vulnerable. Each one of us is a guardian of justice, and it's our collective responsibility to ensure that every report of abuse is met with swift, decisive action. We must demand accountability from the systems entrusted with our children's safety, push for reform, and stand together against the forces of neglect. Let the memory of Leiliana Wright ignite a spark in all of us, a spark that transforms grief into unwavering resolve and sorrow into hope. Whether you're a policymaker, a community leader, or a concerned citizen, now is the time to be vigilant, to question, and to speak up. Before you go, if this story moved you or opened your eyes to the realities of systemic failure, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notifications button. Your support not only honors Leiliana's memory, but also helps spread awareness and drive the change we desperately need. Will you be the one to transform sorrow into hope and help create a future where every child's cry for help is met with action?